Man, every time I come onto this website, I just get more and more jealous because many of you guys know that these silver maples were the next kind of silver that I've been meaning to get. I don't have any maples yet. I have silver eagles. I even have some African silver as well that I got back in December. But yeah, I'm actually planning a wedding right now, so all of my fiat is going into that right now. And I'm just, basically going to be stacking up some more of that before launching into my next round of silver. But I'm hoping that I can do that before the end of the year when I anticipate the prices really increasing. So, yeah, when I see things like this, I'm just like, man, I'm jealous. And also, speaking of prices increasing, you guys may have heard about Secretary Yellen coming out and saying that interest rates will likely be rising to keep the economy from overheating. Now, also just kind of pause for the cause real quick. I'm recording this on Wednesday. This is being released on the weekend because I have some things happening on the weekend. But I'm saying that because I'm going to point to this breaking news article here on this ticker here. And it says the Dow jumped 130 points amid better than expected earnings. Commodity stocks lead gain. Now, again, we've been talking a lot about commodities and how commodities do really well, especially when we're kind of in expansionary periods post a recession. And right now, I just have to say, I do have exposure to a stock called Corn, CORN, and it's been doing extremely well. And many of you guys who might be farmers or who are very familiar with the agricultural space, you guys are probably very aware of how quickly corn prices are rising. But let's see what Secretary Yellen had to say here. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen conceded Tuesday that interest rates may have to rise to keep a lid on the burgeoning growth of the U.S. economy brought on in part by trillions of dollars in government stimulus spending. Now, we all know that was going to be an issue. Remember, I've been saying that's part one of the equation. We had the kindling being laid out by all of that money printing from the stimulus. The next part are people coming in and spending that money. Now, I'll be talking about that in the video that'll be coming out tomorrow, more so, because we got some data that kind of indicates that will be happening. But let's continue with what Secretary Yellen had to say. And I quote, "It may be that interest rates will have to rise somewhat to make sure that our economy doesn't overheat," Yellen said during an economic seminar presented by The Atlantic. Even though the additional spending is relatively small relative to the size of the economy, it could cause some very modest increases in interest rates. So I'm telling you guys, when that does happen, or I should say before that does happen, that is when we need to reconsider or replan or plan out our strategy as far as how much we're going to be taking off the table, because that will be a headwind to prices rising when they do raise those interest rates. So that is just something to take note of as we are in a zero interest rate federal funds rate territory and inflation is rising. And another article here that I think is a little bit more salt of the earth, so to speak. We have Warren Buffett last week stating that he is seeing very substantial inflation and raising prices. So let's see exactly what he had to say, because I think it's very interesting when it comes to the way that we've been talking about inflation versus how the mainstream has, because Warren Buffett is using similar language that we would. And here's what he has to say. "We are seeing very substantial inflation." And then he says, "It's very interesting. We are raising prices. People are raising prices to us, and it's being accepted." So let's continue here. We've got 9 home builders in addition to our manufactured housing and operation, which is the largest in the country. So we really do a lot of housing. The costs are just up, up, up. Steel costs, just every day they're going up. So guys, what have we been seeing, or what have I been talking about the last few months? I've been talking about what's been happening higher up on the value chain in manufacturing, for example, in commodity prices. This is exactly what Warren Buffett is talking about. He's seeing inflation within the commodities and in manufacturing. He even says we deal with we deal with home builders, we deal with manufacturing, and he's talking about specifically steel costs. And I'm sure he would also be talking about lumber costs as well. But when you push things all the way down to the end of the value chain, when it gets to consumers, that's when you'll start to see mainstream saying, oh, look at all this, rising CPI, prices are rising. So we are seeing this ahead of time. It's important to note because that means we can prepare, and we prepare by obviously looking at some of our very favorite shiny pieces of metal. And obviously, I just talked about one at the beginning, and I hope that I can get into this before the end of the year. So guys, let me know what you think about Secretary Yellen and Warren Buffett talking about rising inflation, rising prices, and what is your strategy before we start to see the CPI, not necessarily just rising prices in commodities and in manufacturing, but a significant rise in the CPI. When do you think that will happen? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks again for watching. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe if you're new. It's Black Bullion for GoldandSilverToday.com.